don't you wait? Why don't you wait? Why don't you wait? God's gonna trouble. God's gonna trouble. See the children dressed in red. Must see the children that Moses led. See the children dressed in white. It must be the children of the Israelites. Why don't you wait? Why don't you wait? Why don't you wait? God's gonna trouble. God's gonna trouble. See the children dressed in blue. Must be the freedom fighters coming through. So many colors, can't you see? There's only one God for you and me. Why don't you wait? Why don't you wait? Why don't you wait? God's gonna trouble. God's gonna trouble. God's gonna trouble. But you got to wait. You got to wait. You got to wait. Step into water. God's gonna trouble. The
I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Oh, I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Oh, I woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. I'm walking and talking with my mind. Oh, I'm walking and talking with my mind. Stay on freedom. Oh, I'm walking and talking with my mind. Stay on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. I'm gonna walk, 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 walk with my mind on freedom. Walk, walk,
My goodness, what a gathering. That just brings back such memories. Memories of our sanctuary being completely full of rejoicing. It's so hard not to be with you today here in our sanctuary. For Cantor Kahana and for me to stand alone here in this beautiful sacred space with only our dear accompanist, Michael Barnes, who is masked and he's staying more than 12 feet away from us. Don't worry, everything's good. But this is really a representation of how strange everything is right now. On every other MLK Shabbat service, this sanctuary, as you saw in that video from several years ago, the sanctuary would be filled with you, my beloved friends, your voices, filling our dome with song and with celebration, your joy filling our hearts. But this year is different. This year it is hard to have hearts overflowing with joy, a pandemic which has killed over 2 million human beings worldwide, has devastated economies around the planet. We know that people of color are disproportionately and negatively affected. People have lost lives and livelihoods. And our nation's political environment has sent shivers of fear through us. We have seen white supremacists marching through the streets of our city and our state capital. Destructive lies have filled our media, culminating in a violent attempted coup in our nation's capital. A week and a half ago, we saw abhorrent images of racists, anti-Semites, some wearing sweatshirts mocking the Holocaust. We saw them carrying a Confederate flag into the heart of our democratic stronghold. We witnessed as lawmakers, staff, even their family members, hid themselves in barricaded rooms before a violent and traitorous mob. And we hear new threats of violence in our state's capital and in our nation's capital. Everything this year feels so fragile. And yet, gathering with you today fills my heart with hope. Our world, our nation, our democracy has been tested like never before. But we have withstood the test. Vaccines are making their way around the world, imperfectly, it's true, but at a pace never before seen in medical history. Our political environment is fraught, but our nation stands. Mere hours after being attacked and bodily threatened, Congress reconvened and affirmed the will of the people expressed through a free and fair and multiply verified election. Some disingenuously call for healing, but there can be no healing without accountability. And accountability is happening for those who attacked our nation, including, justifiably, accountability to the President of the United States and those who struck and killed an officer of the Capitol Police. Politicians, the media companies, and platforms which abetted and encouraged this insurrection are being spurred and face legal consequences. They will pay for the crimes they committed against our nation. And our nation will rebound and it will rebuild. Today, the message of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King is so important, it is so needed. He and his generation marched over 55 years ago for racial justice and the dignity of every human being. My father, who would have turned 99 years old yesterday, marched with Dr. King. marched for justice. They marched for the right to vote. They marched for marginalized people to be seen as human beings. And we are marching still. Many see that fact as a tragedy, that we are still marching more than half a century later. I see it as a responsibility. It's not a lack of progress. Is that the forces of hate and systemic racism are not so easily overcome. But we shall overcome. The march continues. It is our honor, our responsibility to keep Dr. King's vision of the beloved community alive. I love that we sing together, that we dream together, and we pledge to honor human dignity together. No one is illegal. No one is other. No matter their color, their religion, their national heritage, their sexual identity, their immigration status, their history of incarceration, their political affiliation, no matter their physical or mental disability, all human beings are equal and deserving of respect. All are deserving of medical care. All are deserving of the ability to make a living wage. All are deserving of educational opportunities. All are deserving of dignity. All adult citizens are deserving of voting rights and access, and none shall be suppressed. We march and we sing for the beloved community. As we honor Dr. King this day, may this day encourage us. This day is different. This day is the same. We march every day. May this day give us hope. May this day remind us to continue to march joyfully with a song in our hearts. This day and every day we march for freedom. And God sees that it is good. March on, my friends. Together, let us march on. Amen.
Amen.
One of the things that makes me so happy with this Martin Luther King service that we have every year, this our 14th year of celebrating together, is the fact that we have such incredible leaders in our community, political leaders, religious leaders, and civic leaders. I'd like to begin with a special welcome, an official greeting from Governor Kate Brown and from Senator Ron Wyden.
Good evening, Governor Kate Brown here. I wish we could all be together. This is one of my favorite evenings, so it certainly breaks my heart not to be with all of you to reflect, to pray, and to sing together. Thank you for taking time to celebrate the life and legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. On my desk, I keep a rock. It's engraved with a quote from Dr. King. Our lives begin to end when we are silent about the things that matter. I take this statement seriously and literally. In the past year, Dr. King's words ring even more true. And I certainly count myself as one of the many white politicians whose good intentions haven't done enough to tackle the scourge of systemic racism. One of my greatest regrets is that it took a global pandemic and the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and way too many others to force an awakening to the ongoing systemic racism that oppresses the Black community. This awakening has lit a fire under white leaders to make the work of racial justice a priority, as it has been for Black and brown people. From this, we've also seen incredible, groundbreaking work to center communities made vulnerable by systemic racism and colonialism in our conversations as we work together to build a safer, stronger, and more equitable place to call home. Dr. King knew that systemic racism was not just a 1964 problem, and it's certainly not just a 2020 problem. That's why we call it a system of racism and not something easy to dismantle. This work will be so relevant and necessary in 2021, 2022, and certainly long after I finish my term as governor. 2021 will present a whole new range of challenges, I'm sure. We're certainly not out of the woods of this pandemic as we work to get Oregonians, especially those who've been disproportionately impacted by COVID-19, vaccinated as quickly and efficiently as we can. As we work to build a better Oregon for everyone, I am committed to honoring Dr. King's legacy by putting Black, Indigenous, Latino, Latina, Latinx, Asian, Pacific Islander, communities of color, and Oregon's tribes at the forefront of our recovery. Over the past year, I convened a Racial Justice Council to have regular and ongoing conversations about how to dismantle structural racism in Oregon state government, and by doing so, have resounding impacts on communities across our entire state. When it comes to racial justice, words are not enough. Actions matter. And it's long past time we take decisive anti-racist action here in the state of Oregon. While our state's and certainly our nation's long history of racist policies will not be deconstructed in one legislative session or a budget cycle, I know we can dismantle the institution of racism the same way that it was built, brick by brick. I am so very proud we have prioritized racial equity and sought to close opportunity gaps so that in the future, race will no longer predict people's outcomes. This was Dr. King's vision of America. And today, we honor him by redoubling our efforts. From all of the low points of 2020, we will move forward to build a better Oregon for everyone. Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom. Although we can't gather in person as we do each year for the special Shabbat service, I do want to share a few words of support and encouragement at this historic and trying time. I'm so proud that every year my congregation Beth Israel, brings together hundreds of community members to celebrate and recognize the legacy of MLK. That coalition came together to make gains in the civil rights era, and that essential coalition continues today. This coalition is essential because we face huge challenges. The pandemic has devastated so many, and it has been particularly hard on Black, Indigenous, and people of color in America. It's more important than ever to take Dr. King's timeless call for urgent action to address health disparities, economic opportunity, and justice reform. It's more important than ever to answer Dr. King's timeless call for urgent action to address health disparities, economic opportunity, and justice reform. I am honored to stand with all of you in these critical battles today, and I'll be with you every step of the way in the days ahead. And I'm heartened by the power of community and collaboration that I see happen here every year. I look forward to the day when we can gather again safely. For now, let's make tonight a celebration. And to borrow the words of one-time MLK Shabbat guest and a special friend of mine, the late Congressman John Lewis, let's make 2021 the year of good trouble.
Thank you so much, Governor Brown. Thank you so much, Senator Wyden. We're grateful for your leadership. I'd like to introduce to everybody watching a number of special guests. Again, our political, civic, and religious leaders. We're going to spotlight them briefly as I call their names, and I'm going to invite everyone at home to give them a round of applause as we go through. These are really incredible leaders in our community, and we are so grateful for the work they're doing, and they can use our ongoing encouragement. It's a pleasure to welcome first U.S. Representative Earl Blumenauer, U.S. Representative Suzanne Bonamici, Oregon Attorney General Ellen Rosenblum, Oregon Secretary of State, newly sworn in, Secretary of State Shemaiah Fagan, Oregon State Senate Majority Leader Rob Wagner, Oregon State Senator Lou Frederick, Multnomah County Commissioner Sharon Myron, Multnomah District Attorney Mike Schmidt, United States Attorney for the District of Oregon Billy J. Williams, Portland City Commissioner newly elected Mingus Mapps, Portland City Commissioner also newly elected Dan Ryan, Marcus C. Munday, Executive Director, Coalition of Communities of Color, Portland Freedom Rider Max Pavicic, Reverend Nathan LaRue, Dean of Trinity Episcopal Cathedral, the again newly appointed Very Reverend Monsignor Gerald O. O'Connor, Rector St. Mary's Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception. Welcome. Mark Blattner, President and CEO, Jewish Federation of Greater Portland. Bob Hornstein, Director of Community Relations and Public Affairs, Jewish Federation of Greater Portland. Jan Elfers, President, Ecumenical Ministries of Oregon. The Reverend W.J. Mark Knutson, pastor of Augustana Lutheran Church. Kevin Plow, President, Plow Association. Wajdi Saeed, President and co-founder, Muslim Educational Trust. Reverend Dr. Chuck Curry, minister in the United Church of Christ. Imam Abdullah Polvina, Bosniak Educational and Cultural Organization. Daryl George, President of the Beaverton, Oregon State of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Also new in that position, welcome. Steve Rallison, Director of Interfaith Relations, Portland area, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and a good friend of our community. United States District Judge Michael H. Simon. Cameron Whitten, co-founder, Black Resilience Fund. Nikinge Harmon Johnson, President and CEO, Urban League of Portland. Sharon Gary Smith, President, NAACP of Portland, also newly elected to that position. Welcome. My friend, poet, and performer, Reverend Emmett Wheatfall. Pastor J.W. Matt Hennessy, Senior Servant, Vancouver Avenue First Baptist Church, who gets the longest title of anyone and well-deserved. And let's also recognize that there are a number of our friends who are watching our service who are not able to be spotlighted right now, but we want to also welcome the new Oregon State Representative, Dr. Lisa Reynolds, and U.S. Senior District Judge Anna Brown, U.S. Magistrate Judge Stacy Bickerman, and to any other of our elected leaders, our religious leaders, and civic leaders. Thank you so much for joining us for this service, and for all of them, let's give them a big round of applause. Thank you.
So many honored guests, so many wonderful people who are joining us this evening, and one of the most important has been waiting for her introduction, and that is our bat mitzvah. That is Ella Weprin, as she this weekend is going to take her place as a Jewish adult this Shabbat, as she's going to take on those rights and responsibilities. She's going to be leading us in prayer and teaching us tomorrow morning. But tonight, we get a taste of this as we invite her family to join us by lighting the Shabbat candles and leading us in the blessing over the wine, leading us in Kiddush. So I'll invite Ella now and her family, and you can join them if you're following along in a prayer book. They are beginning on page 2.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Amen. Thank you for welcoming the light. And now you're going to lead us in the Kiddush on page 6, page 5.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kishanu mitzotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hihilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom tehila lemikrae kodesh, zecher litziad Mitzrayim, kivanu v'harta, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, ve'ahava uvratzon hinhaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat. Amen.
L'chaim. Mazel tov. Mazel tov to you, Ella. Mazel tov to your whole family. And we really look forward to continuing the celebration tomorrow morning. And so now that we have brought in that much needed light, and we are making that separation between the mundane of the week and the holy of Shabbat, we breathe in this ideal world, the Shabbat, as this taste of the world to come, a world that we pray is without hatred and poverty and injustice, a world where we're judged not by the color of our skin, but by the content of our character. So on this Shabbat, may we celebrate our common dream. And as we welcome Shabbat with the singing of Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala, as we welcome the Sabbath bride, may we resolve to make it a reality.
Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala, B'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamu b'zachor dibur echad hishmianu, elam yuchad Adonai echad, u'shemo echad l'shemu tiferet v'litila. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Itoreri kiva orech kumi ori shidaberi kivod Adonai alayich nigla. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
It is our tradition that you rise, face a doorway near you, and imagine the bride of Shabbat coming in. Bui für Shalom, Ateret Bala, Gam Besimcha, Uvitzala, Emune, Am Segula, Bui Chala, Bui Chala. Lechatoti likratala, bene Shabbat nekabla. Lechatoti likratala, bene Shabbat nekabla. And so now, if you are already standing, I'll invite you to remain standing for our call to prayer. Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Va'ed. As we feel God's presence with us in this moment, you can take the time to actually cover your eyes or just lightly close your eyes and listen deeply to that voice deep within you, which is the voice of the Holy One. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivot, Shem Kivot Malchuto, Leolam Va'ed. Hear, O Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai is one. Please be seated. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha, you shall love Adonai your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. Take to heart these instructions which I charge you this day. Impress them upon your children. Recite them when you stay at home and when you are away, when you lie down and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign upon your hand, and let them serve as a symbol between your eyes. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Thus you shall remember to observe all my commandments and be holy to your God. Ani Adonai Elohechem, I am Adonai your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt to be your God. I am Adonai your God.
So, good evening. Cameron Whitten came to Portland with nothing. But that word nothing only refers to material possessions. Somewhere inside him, Cameron arrived here in our town with an energy and a heart that doesn't stop. Somewhere inside Cameron is a vision and a belief that he can make a difference in our city and in our lives. That vision took him to the front lines of Occupy Portland. Took him to a 55-day hunger strike for housing rights, to running for mayor, and then revitalizing the Q Center and seeking racial equity from TriMet. And that was all before COVID. So COVID has affected everyone listening tonight. For many, it's been devastating. And for many, that devastation has been financial. Cameron's heart and vision zeroed in on that need. And that's when he birthed the Black Resilience Fund. asking all of us to help. So if someone needed money for groceries or a car battery or rent or any of the hundreds of expenses we take for granted in normal times, the money would be there without red tape and bureaucratic hassles. And just maybe, from that vision, it would help the fabric of the city hold together. So it's my pleasure to introduce a drum major for justice, my friend Cameron Whitten.
Mr. Silver, thank you. This is an incredible honor to be here tonight. I want to thank the rabbi, the cantor, all of our amazing civic, political, religious leaders who are here today for a day of the year, a night of the year that I look forward to every year it comes. So my name is Cameron Whitten, and it is my honor to be here representing many hats. Hats that you normally do not see when you turn on the TV, when you see somebody speaking. But I've come a rocky journey to be here today to share a heart that is filled with love and hope. The past 12 months presented unbelievable challenges and shone brilliantly on lingering injustices. Growing inequality continues to threaten the vision of an equitable and thriving America we all want to see come to fruition. Clearly, Portland has a progressive history to be proud of: women's suffrage, environmental protections, and civil liberties. But at the same time, our legacy of discrimination has tarnished that progress. Exclusion laws, the Vanport floods, redlining and disinvestment, urban renewal, and predatory housing practices, to name a few. We like to think of these injustices as a thing of the past, but they aren't. There are places in Oregon where there are still red lines on the ground, and the floods have never passed. Dr. King said, "One day we will learn that the heart can never be totally right when the head is totally wrong." We, as Portlanders and Americans, can and should celebrate our progressive history. But we also need to look in the mirror and acknowledge that the benefits of our progress have not been equitably shared, and those disparities are fueling our newest crises. This is how the work of racial justice nonprofit Brown Hope came to be. Although Oregon was originally founded to be a racist, whites-only utopia, we had a powerful dream that Black, brown, and indigenous people could live here and thrive. Brown Hope's mission, inspired by the words and legacy of Dr. King, is to help all of us create connection through the heart, mind, and voice to inspire the collective healing we all must be a part of. We've continued that work through the Black Resilience Fund, which since June 1st has raised more than $2.5 million to provide real and tangible support to Black Portlanders who are grappling with the dual storms of a global pandemic and systemic racism. Here, in the widest major city in the United States, thousands of Portlanders of all beautiful backgrounds unexpectedly banded together to send a powerful message to this nation and beyond, that Black lives do matter. Despite these recent wins, we know our road towards a truly equitable, just, and hopeful future will not be easy. On a national scale, since 2016, we've watched with a degree of powerlessness as America headed in an alarming and chaotic direction. Regardless of the winds of change and transition, we are left with a chilling question to keep us up at night. Are we actually headed in the direction of justice? We've seen breakdown after breakdown in the social fabric of this country, and it will take years to recover the social cohesion that we need to finally have healing and a path forward as a nation. While this sense of uncertainty is real, It does not define us. At the community level, we've dedicated ourselves to face uncertainty with resilience, vision, and action. We've rolled up our sleeves and without guarantee of result, worked to find creative, collaborative solutions to our shared problems. Despite great odds and historical precedents being against us, a global tidal wave of people refused to let despair define us. We took action and created the change we yearned for. From first responders and essential workers to protesters and voters, the defining moments of 2020 prove that any one of us is an everyday hero in waiting. History will never forget the resilient action of our neighbors, friends, and allies who never gave up on the vision of a just America. One of the great leaders we lost during this difficult year was civil rights leader John Lewis, who I had the privilege to meet in 2014, thanks to Congregation Beth Israel. In his final essay before his death, he urged us forward with his most memorable saying, "Ordinary people with extraordinary vision can redeem the soul of America by getting in what I call good trouble, necessary trouble." We, as ordinary Americans, have a reputation for defiantly good trouble. The fight for justice has never been easy. There will be more uncertainties, and we will always be the resilient leadership we are waiting for. It is our responsibility and calling to survive this moment in time and fuel a lasting movement for justice. With the powerful legacy of Dr. King and our ancestors who paid the ultimate sacrifices, I start 2021 with the unassailable dream that better days are ahead. Together, let's do everything in our power to make those days a reality. Thank you.
Cameron, thank you so much. Those words are so moving and so important. We're going to put onto the screen the address for the Black Resilience Fund, and we're going to encourage everybody who's watching this to give to that fund and help support all of the causes that that Cameron was talking about, those who are really deeply in need in our community right now. Not seeing it on the screen, so just you can Google it easily, blackresiliencefund.com. And I am very honored to announce, Cameron, that an anonymous donor is giving a donation to the Black Resilience Fund through Congregation Beth Israel of $20,000. And we hope this will be just the beginnings of an ongoing relationship and encouragement to all of us to participate, to do what we can to make a difference in our community. Thank you, Cameron.
We who are praying with our hearts and souls and feet recognize that we are standing on the shoulders of those who have prayed and preached and marched before us. Rabbi Emanuel Rose led this congregation for 46 years with a strong voice for social justice rooted in the teachings of Judaism. It is with gratitude, respect, and poignancy that now we listen to this recording from 2012 as Rabbi Rose reads the words of Dr. King floating above the choir, humming the anthem of another time, yet still so relevant in this time. We shall overcome. A promise for redemption, intertwined with the ancient words and melody chanted from the book of Exodus, Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, who is like you, Adonai, among the false gods that are worshipped? Who is like you, glorious in holiness, awe-inspiring in splendor, doing wonders?
when your children witnessed your power. They extolled you and gave you thanks. And yet, we, your children, still need to experience your redemptive power in the world. We need hope and we need faith. In the words of Dr. King, with this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the juggling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we all will one day be free. And when this happens, when we allow freedom to ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last. Praised are you, O God, the Redeemer of us all.
Among the giants who we have lost in this year, it is so beautiful to hear Rabbi Rose's words resounding in this sanctuary once again. Thank you for allowing us to hear that and to experience Rabbi Rose of blessed memory. I'm proud to introduce another great talent in our community. We are blessed with wonderful leaders. As we've heard, we're blessed with wonderful artists in our community. Emmett Wheatfall is a poet in our community. He reads, writes, publishes, performs poetry here. He has had several books published of poetry. A collection as known as Clean as a Bone was published in May of 2018. And it was the 2019 Eric Hoffer Award finalist, among other awards. He has been a featured poet at the 50th anniversary celebration of the March on Washington, the Portland event here, where he delivered his original poem written for the occasion, Miles to Go Before We Sleep. And in addition, poet Wheatfall has been keynote speaker at the screening of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech for the Oregon Historical Society's Oregon Black History Series program, March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom 50th anniversary. in August of 2013. Over this past year, I have had the privilege to get to know Emmett Wheatfall through our work together in United in Spirit, a broad-based nonpartisan coalition of civic, cultural, and religious groups organized through the Jewish Federation of Greater Portland. It is a great pleasure to welcome Emmett Wheatfall, who will be sharing with us an original poem for this occasion to the Negro and Jewish people.
Rabbi Kahana, thank you for that warm and beautiful introduction. I am absolutely humbled. I am thrilled and honored to be able to participate in celebrating with Congregation Beth Israel the life and legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. What I'm more excited about this evening, before I share the poem, is the inclusion of poetry in the celebration of his and Coretta's life. Poetry is one of the oldest art forms known to mankind, and I'm so grateful to God that he has given me a love for poetry. As Rabbi indicated, I would like to share with you this evening an original poem for the occasion. And I have titled the poem, "To the Negro and Jewish People." To the Negro and Jewish people. To the Negro and Jewish people, history has not been kind. If the Negro people's history and the Jewish people's history are noteworthy, then follow the lines that precede us. Follow our unimaginable journey from humanity to inhumanity, from dignity to indignity. And yet, from the grave, Langston Hughes shouts, "I too am America." From the grave, Hannah Arendt exhorts, "Storytelling reveals meaning without committing the error of defining it." From the grave, James Baldwin proclaims, "I am not your Negro." From the grave, Rabbi Hillel admonishes, "If I am not for myself, who will be for me? If I am not for others, what am I? And if not now, when?" From the grave, Maya Angelou conjures, "Still I rise." From the grave, Elie Wiesel declares, "Whenever men and women are persecuted because of their race, religion, or political views, that place must, at that moment, become the center of the universe. For we, a remarkable people, Negroes and Jews of continuing origin, follow the lines that precede us, moving from inhumanity to humanity, from indignity to dignity, all the while never forgetting to whom history has not been kind. Thank you very much. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening. Yes.
Thank you so much, Emmett. Wow, so powerful. We're all letting your words just sink in. Powerful connection you made. We arrive in our liturgy to the Amidah, a prayer actually which speaks about connection. We recall the sacred connection between us and our ancestors, the matriarchs, the patriarchs of Judaism. And on this Shabbat, of course, we recognize that same sense of strong chain of connection to those who came before us, leaders of movements who continue to inspire us today, who shaped us, who have made us who we are through their dedication to equality and to justice. And so with that in mind and with that on our hearts, we turn to page 46 if we have a prayer book with us as we chant these traditional words in Hebrew, the Amidah. We're going to chant just the first part this evening together. I invite you to rise in body or in spirit, whichever you're most comfortable with to connect. Adonai sefatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah. האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה.
This is the time ordinarily in a service where we sing a song of healing, and probably one of truly the greatest songs of healing ever written was Precious Lord by Thomas A. Dorsey. Alonzo Chadwick is going to sing it for us, and Derek McDuffie will be on the piano.
So
We might not be together, but I certainly feel like I am in that space. I'm on my feet. I feel that prayer. And during this section, which is called Tefillah, which is the great prayer when we stand up, and like Kendra Green told us, we call on our ancestors for that strength of our history. And so we're going to call on more of that strength, more prayers to be shared. And so we're really thrilled to welcome Sharon Gary Smith, who is the new president of the NAACP Portland, and Nakenge Harmon Johnson, our friend and president and CEO of the Urban League of Portland, to lead us in prayer.
First, I am so humbled and I'm honored to be amongst you again, whether we are socially distanced, but in spirit, we're always together to celebrate the precious legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and all the warriors and all the queens and kings who stand around and give us the power to keep on. So I thank you tonight for being invited to be amongst you. It's already been almost overwhelming to reflect. And I'd like to share with you a prayer by Reverend Bill Sinkford of the First Unitarian Church and a member of the Faith Leaders Caucus for Black Lives. This poem was written on January 6th of this year, 2021. Spirit of life, whom we know by many names and no name at all. Spirit of liberation and love, God of our hopes and of our divided nation. Be with us on this day, which began in hope. The results of the election in Georgia gave us reason to believe in the promise of our nation. We know our shortcomings all too well, how the culture of white supremacy is yet to be dismantled, how so many of us still know, want, and fear. Yet this morning, January 6th, we were able to hope. But Spirit, this day, has set us back. The forces of hate and falsehood that desecrated the center of our imperfect democracy today were successful too easily. What we do not this afternoon know all that we need to know, nor do we know all that we will need to do. But this we do know, Great Spirit, that the yearning for liberation still sings in our hearts, that we still have faith that love can be stronger than hate and even fear, that hope can arise out of broken glass and shattered dreams. We are not the first of your people to struggle, nor the first to find that the path forward is stony and rough. We are not the first, nor will we be the last, who must find a way out of what feels like no way. Be with us, Spirit. Help us stay centered in our vision for beloved community. Help us hold the faith that love can be real if we make it so by the living of our lives. Help us be resolved that the promise of this nation shall not perish, not on our watch, and that the soul of this nation can yet be redeemed. May that be so. Amen.
Thank you, Sister Sharon, President Gary Smith. I am honored to be here this evening. Cantor and Rabbi Kahana, I'm saddened not to be next to you, as I am used to being on days such as this. Rabbi Rachel, I'm used to hugging you on this evening and being near to you, but it is so wonderful to see your faces this evening. I am honored to share the stage with you once again, and to my brother Cameron Witten. I am for you ever, and I am proud to be amongst you. I thank you for serving our community ceaselessly. Good evening, friends. I am Nakenge Harmon Johnson. I am the Chief Executive of the Urban League, an organization that has for more than 75 years served all of Oregon and Southwest Washington. I am your sister and your friend, and I'm honored to share this prayer with you this evening. I hope that for you, it brings up feelings of discontent. I hope for you that it brings up the desire to do more. And while we can't be here together in person, every year someone comes to greet me after I leave the stage to ask how they can become involved in the Urban League's work. I will invite you to visit us online since we can't talk this evening. We are at ulpdx.org. If you are interested in doing more in the community than you feel you are able to do now, we invite you to join us. Disturb us, Adonai. Ruffle us from our complacency. Make us dissatisfied. Dissatisfied with the peace of ignorance, the quietude which arises from a shunning of the horror, the defeat, the bitterness, and the poverty, physical and spiritual, of humans. Shock us, Adonai. Deny us the false Shabbat, which gives us the delusions of satisfaction amid a world of war and hatred. Wake us, O God, and shake us from the sweet and sad poignancies rendered by half-forgotten melodies and rubric prayers of yesteryears. Make us know that the border of the sanctuary is not the border of living, and the walls of your temples are not shelters from the winds of truth, justice, and reality. Disturb us, O God, and vex us. Let not your Shabbat be a day of torpor and slumber. Let it be a time to be stirred and spurred to action.
Amen. And spurred to action. We're going to take a few moments for our own personal prayers, meditations, inspirations, as we have the opportunity to listen to the song, "Oh Freedom." Because with freedom, we know, comes great responsibility to make this world a better place for all. And our work is far from over. As Sherry and Gary Smith actually reminded us just a few moments before we started this service, the words from Ella's song, that those who believe in freedom cannot rest. So I invite us now to think about the actions, those actions that we can take in this day, in this time, in this moment. Oh, freedom.
Oh
Oh my goodness. Cedar Wright, thank you so much. That solo, that was so beautiful. Oh, freedom. We believe in it, we sing for it, we march for it. It is powerful. We will bring it. Pleased to welcome our congregants and our dear friend, our Congresswoman, Suzanne Bonamici, who has represented the 1st Congressional District of Oregon since February of 2012. That district includes Washington, Yamhill, Clatsop, and Columbia counties, and also part of Multnomah County, including Congregation Beth Israel. Suzanne is honored to serve on the Select Committee of the Climate Crisis, where she will fight for comprehensive policies that mitigate the effects of climate change, strengthen the economy, and protect our planet for future generations. She also serves as a member of the Committee on Science, Space, and Technology, and previously served as the top Democratic member of the Subcommittee on the Environment. From this position, she worked to defend science, address the causes and consequences of climate change, and make sure that policy decisions are based on independent science. We're looking forward to more of that. As a representative of Coastal Oregon and co-chair of the House Oceans Caucus and Congressional Estuary Caucus, she is working to draw attention to issues that affect coastal communities. In 2014, Congresswoman Bonamici invited our keynote speaker of that time, 2014, and tonight's keynote speaker, the late Representative John Lewis. She invited him to our synagogue for that year's MLK Shabbat service, and we are so grateful that she did. Congresswoman Bonamici.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Kahana. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. It's been such a healing evening. Thank you, Rabbi, for inviting me to introduce the remarks made by the late Congressman John Lewis, originally delivered 7 years ago, January of 2014. And I've been reflecting on all that's happened since John Lewis was here with us in Portland. We marked the 50th anniversary of Bloody Sunday. I had the opportunity to be in Selma with Congressman Lewis and walk across the Edmund Pettus Bridge with him. I followed John Lewis's leadership and sat on the House floor to protest congressional inaction on gun violence prevention. The movie Selma and the documentary John Lewis, Good Trouble were released, and more people across the country and around the world got to know more about the remarkable man and his remarkable life. Early last spring, John turned 80. We had a surprise party for him at the Capitol. And then in July, we grieved his passing, and we still grieve. 2020 was a hard year, a year when a global pandemic hit hard, especially hard on our Black communities and communities of color. A year when George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and so many others tragically had their lives taken by those who were supposed to keep them safe. A year when we lost not only John Lewis, but when we were still numb with pain, we lost Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Yes, 2020 was a very hard year. And 2021 got off to a very hard start. I've wondered many times this past week what John would have thought and said about the violent attack on the US Capitol. Throughout his life, John participated in boycotts and marches and sit-ins and demonstrations. He was beaten and harassed and arrested multiple times. And each and every time he showed unyielding, nonviolent discipline, that's what he meant by good trouble. Dr. Mary Elizabeth King worked with him at SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, and she said, I could often see John reaching inside himself to find a place that sought neither retribution nor retaliation, seeking solely justice and the dismantling of inequities. What happened at the Capitol was the antithesis of what John Lewis stood for. The country would be far better if we could all exemplify his kindness, his passion, and his stoic ability to remain calm in any kind of storm. John would often say, and I can still hear him saying, never give up, never give in. Never give up, never give in. Stand up, speak up. And when you see something that is not right, not just, not fair, you have a moral obligation to do something, to say something, and not to be quiet. Let us all not be quiet together, and may his memory be a blessing. Please enjoy the words and the warmth and the kindness and the wisdom of the late, great Congressman John Lewis.
Please join me in welcoming my colleague, Congressman John Lewis.
Suzanne, my sister, my colleague, my friend, thank you for those kind words of introduction. You didn't have to do it, but you did it. I appreciate it. Rabbi, thank you. To all other religious leaders, of the rabbis, ministers, Mr. President, to all of the honorable elected and appointed officials, to each and every one of you, thank you for being here. I feel like we can go home. Some of you maybe saw me sort of dapping my eyes from time to time. Thank you. Everybody, thank you. Choir, thank you for the music. I've said on occasion, without music, the civil rights movement would have been like a bird without wings. Thank you. You know, we used to sing, go down Moses, way down in Egypt land, tell O Pharaoh to let my people go. We understand our ancestors, slaves. Tonight, I must tell you, I feel more than lucky. I feel very blessed to be here in this temple. It is a holy place. There is a spirit here. Martin Luther King Jr. would be so proud of you tonight to see you. His spirit is here. Now, some of you have heard me say, I didn't grow up in a big city like Portland. A big city like Washington or New York or Detroit or Atlanta. I grew up on a farm in rural Alabama, 50 miles from Montgomery, outside of a little place called Troy. My father was a sharecropper, a tenant farmer. But back in 1944, when I was 4 years old, and I do remember when I was 4, how many of you remember when you were 4? Well, what happened to the rest of us? My father bought 110 acres of land for $300. We moved from that plantation. And on this farm, we raised a lot of cotton and corn, peanuts, and a lot of chickens. We'll talk about the chickens. Some of you heard me tell the story. It was my responsibility to care for the chickens. And I fell in love with raising chickens like no one else could raise chicken. I became very good at it. I know some of you know something about Popeyes. Kentucky Fried, Bojangles. But you really don't know anything about raising chicken? That's another story. We worked very hard in the field from sunup to sundown, and I was said to my mother, "This is hard work. It's about to kill me." And my mother would say, "Boy, hard work never killed anybody. Just do your work." But those chickens taught me something. Let me tell you what I had to do as a young boy. I had to take the fresh eggs, mark them with a pencil, place them under the setting hen, and wait for 3 long weeks for the little chicks to hatch. Some of you may be saying, "Now, John Lewis, why do you mark those fresh eggs with a pencil before you place them under the setting hen?" Well, from time to time, another hen would get on that same nest, and there would be some more eggs. And you had to be able to tell the fresh eggs from the eggs that were already under the setting hen. Do you follow me? You don't follow me, it's okay, it's all right. So when these little chicks would hatch, I would take these little chicks and put them in a box with a lantern, raise them on their own. I'd take the little chicks and give them to another hen, get some more fresh eggs, mark them with a pencil, place them under the setting hen, encourage the setting hen to stay in that's for another 3 weeks. I kept on fooling and cheating these setting hens. And when I look back on it, it was not the right thing to do. It was not the moral thing to do. It was not the most loving thing to do. It was not the most nonviolent thing to do. I was never quite able to save $18.98 to order the most inexpensive incubator, a hatchet from the Susan Roebuck store. So I just kept on cheating on the setting hen. But as a little boy, Rabbi, I wanted to be a minister. I wanted to preach the gospel. So from time to time, with the help of my brothers and sisters and cousins, we gather all of our chickens together in the chicken yard. And my brothers and sisters and cousins were lying around and outside of the chicken yard, but they helped make up the audience and the congregation along with the chickens. And I would start speaking or preaching. And I noticed some of these chickens would bow their heads. Some of these chickens would shake their heads. They never quite said amen. But I'm convinced that some of those chickens that I preached to during the 40s and the 50s tended to listen to me much better than some of our colleagues listen to us today in the Congress. As a matter of fact, some of those chickens were just a little more productive. At least they produced eggs. Growing up there outside of Troy, Alabama, when we would visit Troy, visit Montgomery, visit Tuskegee, I saw those signs that said white men, colored men, white women, colored women, white waiting, colored waiting. I asked my mother, my father, my grandparents, my great-grandparents, why? And they would say, "That's the way it is. Don't get in the way, don't get in trouble." But one day in 1955, 15 years old in the 10th grade, I heard about Rosa Parks. I heard the words of Martin Luther King Jr. on our radio, and the words, the leadership of Dr. King inspired me to find a way to get in the way to get in trouble, good trouble, necessary trouble. I admired what Dr. King was doing. Seemed like he was speaking directly to me when I heard his voice on the radio. Looked like he was saying, "John Robert Lewis, you too can do something." So in 1956, at the age of 16, with some of my brothers and sisters and cousins, we went down to the public library in the little town of Troy, Alabama, trying to get a library card, trying to check out some books. And we were told by the librarian that the library was for whites only and not for coloreds. I never went back to the Pike County Public Library until July 5th, 1998, for a book signing of my book. And hundreds of blacks and white citizens showed up. Had a wonderful time. Signed a lot of books. End of the program, they gave me a library card. Martin Luther King Jr., this man that I marched with, this man that I worked with, this man that I went to jail with, this man, my inspiration, my leader, my hero, my friend, my big brother, liberated not just a people, but he freed and liberated a nation. It was Martin Luther King Jr. who said on one occasion, we must learn to live together as brothers and sisters, or we will perish as fools. You know, if it hadn't been for Martin Luther King Jr., I don't know what would have happened to our nation. Preaching and teaching the way of peace, the way of love, the way of nonviolence. Many of us as students, that were young people here in the state, here in the city of Portland, that were so moved by what Dr. King was saying and doing. They boarded buses and came on the Freedom Ride. They worked in Mississippi during the summer of 1964. They came to Selma in 1965. Not only students, but rabbis and priests and nuns and ministers, teachers, college professors were moved to act, to stand up, to speak out. The power of love. The power of forgiveness, to be reconciled, to become one, to create a sense of community. Dr. King taught us how to sit in, how to stand up, how to speak up, how to speak out, and how to march. He said on one occasion, there's not anything more powerful than the marching feet of a determined people. And maybe, my colleague, maybe we have to march again. Rabbi, I agree with you. I think there's some meanness in our society. I don't like to talk about our fellow human beings, but I think sometime in America, we've come to that point. But some of us go to bed mean, we dream mean, we get up mean, and we say, who can I hurt today? Who can I put down today? Let me just give you one or two examples. In 1961, I was 21 years old, the same year that President Barack Obama was born. Back in 1961, Black people and white people couldn't leave Washington, D.C. together, riding on a Greyhound bus or Trailway bus and cross into Virginia, to travel through North Carolina, South Carolina, through Georgia, Alabama, through Mississippi on our way to New Orleans. We were beaten. We were arrested. We were jailed. Some of us was left bloody and unconscious at the Greyhound bus station in Montgomery. But before we made it to Alabama, before we made it to Georgia, to South Carolina or North Carolina, my seatmate, a young white gentleman, two of us arrived in a little town called Rock Hill, South Carolina, only a few miles from Charlotte, North Carolina. We started through the door of a waiting room saying white waiting. We were attacked and beaten and left lying in a pool of blood. The local officials came and wanted to know whether we wanted to press charges. We said no. This was May 9th, 1961. In February '09, less than a month after President Obama was inaugurated, one of the guys that beat me and my seatmate, left us lying there, came to my office in Washington with his son and said, Mr. Lewis, I'm one of the people that beat you. I want to apologize. will you forgive me? I said yes. His son started crying, he started crying. They hugged me, I hugged him back, and I started crying. And I saw the gentleman 4 other times. We call each other brothers. It says something about the power of honor and suffering, redemptive suffering, the power of love, the power of nonviolence. Give you one more example. On the Freedom Rides, later in May of 1961, an angry mob met us in Montgomery. There were black and white young people and people not so young at the Greyhound bus station. We was beaten. The local police official withdrew and let an angry mob beat us. Several of us were hurt, hospitalized. But last year, when I went back to Montgomery with a large delegation from the Congress, some of the leadership of the Congress, black, white, Latinos, Asian Americans. The local police chief met us at the same church where I met Dr. King, Reverend Abernathy, in 1958. The chief came on behalf of the mayor to speak. This chief was not even born 45 or 50 years ago. He was only about 40 years old. He said, Mr. Lewis, when you came here in 1961, we were not kind to you. Our police department withdrew and allowed an angry mob to beat you. But we have a different police department today. Before anyone can become a member of this department, they must study the philosophy and the discipline of nonviolence. They must study what happened here in Montgomery. They must know something about Rosa Parks, about Martin Luther King Jr. They must know something about what happened in Selma and Birmingham. He went on to say, we're better today. He said, I want to show my respect for you and the movement. He was wearing his badge, saying the chief of police, Montgomery, Alabama. He said, I'm going to take my badge off, and I want to present it to you. And I said, Chief, you can't do that. You're the chief of police. You need your badge. He said, Congressman, I can get another one. We have witnessed, because of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., what I call a nonviolent revolution. A revolution of values, a revolution of ideas. If we accept the teaching of Martin Luther King Jr., live it. Be kind to each other. Respect each other and respect the dignity and the worth of every human being. Then what we do here in America on this little piece of real estate maybe can serve as a model for the rest of the world. Try it. Let us give peace a chance. Let's do what we can to build the beloved community, where we can lay down the burden of race, the burden of hate. For in the final analysis, we are one people, we are one family, we are one house. We all live in the same house. Some of you have heard me tell this story, and I'll tell this story and I'll be finished. When I was growing up outside of Troy, Alabama, 50 miles from Montgomery, I had an aunt by the name of Seneva. And my Aunt Seneva lived in what we call a shotgun house. I know here in Portland, you don't even know what I'm talking about. You've never seen a shotgun house. She didn't have a green manicured lawn, had a simple, plain dirt yard. Sometime at night, you can look up through the holes in the ceiling and count the stars. When it rains, we get a pail, a bucket, or tub, and catch the rainwater. From time to time, she would walk out into the woods and cut branches from a dogwood tree and tie these branches together and make a broom. And she called that broom the breast broom. And she would sweep this dirt yard very clean, sometimes 2 and 3 times a week. but it's special on a Friday or Saturday because she wanted that dirt yard to look good during the weekend. For those of you who really may not know what a shotgun house is, in the nonviolent sense, it's an old house, one way in, one way out, where you can bounce a basketball through the front door and it will go straight out the back door. My Aunt Steve lived in a shotgun house. But one Saturday afternoon, a group of my brothers and sisters and a few of my first cousins were out playing in my Aunt Steve dirt yard, and an unbelievable storm came up. The wind started blowing, the thunder started rolling, the lightning started flashing, and the rain started beating on the tin roof of this old shotgun house. My aunt became terrified. She started crying. She thought this old house was going to blow away. She got all of us little children together and told us to hold hands. And when one corner of this old house appeared to be lifting from its foundation, she had us to walk to that side to try to hold the house down with our little bodies. When the other side appeared to be lifting, she had us to walk to that side. We were little children walking with the wind, but we never left the house. I said to you tonight, as we remember Martin Luther King Jr., the wind may blow, the thunder may roll, the lightning may flash, and the rain may beat on our old house. Call it the house of Portland. Call it the house of Atlanta. Call it the house of America. Call it the house of Israel. Call it the house of Europe. Call it the house of Africa. Call it the house of the Middle East. We all live in the same house. We must do what we can, not only to hold the American house together, but to hold the human house together, the world house. So I said to you tonight, don't give up. Don't give in. Don't become bitter. Don't become hostile. You can't be silent. You have to move your feet. You have to speak up and find a way to get in the way and make a way out of no way. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would be very pleased if he could just look out and see this audience. He loved music, and I tell you, you did all right tonight. You did well. So thank you so much. I am very hopeful, very optimistic about the future. I got arrested 40 times during the 60s. And since I've been in Congress, I've been arrested another 5 times. And if it takes getting arrested again, I would be there to we got to do something. We got to fix it. We got to fix it. It doesn't make sense, and my colleague would agree, it doesn't make sense that we have more than 12 million people living in the shadow. We got to have comprehensive immigration reform. There's no such thing on God's little planet as illegal human beings. So it doesn't matter whether we're black or white, Latino, Asian American, or Native American. It doesn't matter whether we're Protestant, Catholic, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, straight or gay. We're brothers and sisters. As African American and as members of the Jewish community and others, we bled together. This June 21st, 50 years ago, 3 young men that I knew, that I met, knew one more than I knew the other 2. Andy Goodman, Mickey Schwerner, and James Shady, these three young men, Jewish and African American, I still can't get over this. Went out to investigate the burning of an African American church to be used for voter registration workshop. These three young men stopped by the sheriff, detained, taken to jail, later turned over to the Klan, where they were beaten, shot, and killed. It happened in America. We cannot forget that. My colleague, we got to do something to honor these three young men. They must be looked upon as the fathers of modern America. They gave their blood, they gave their lives in Mississippi for everybody to have the right to participate, the right to vote. I've said in the past, the vote is precious, almost sacred. It is the most powerful, non-violent instrument or tool that we have in a democratic society, and it must not be denied any people, anyone. So in the name of Martin Luther King Jr., this wonderful man, this beloved brother, the rabbi said he was a prophet, and I believe he was a modern day prophet. Go out and do good. Go out and carry the message of love and peace. We can do it. I don't know, with the technology that we have today, the social media, we didn't have that during the 60s. I hadn't heard of the internet. We didn't have a fax machine. We had one of those, what you call this, mimeograph that you turn around and around. We can do a lot of good. Just come together and let's do it. It must start with the people. Don't wait on Washington. Just do it. Do what is right. Do what is fair. Find a way to get in the way. Get in good trouble, necessary trouble, in the name of Martin Luther King Jr. Thank you very much.
Hi.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Ron Silver. I didn't introduce myself the last time. That emotion of that song, For Every Mountain, sung by Marietta Collier, takes us to the time in our service where we remember the giants, the heroes that have walked among us, that walk among us no more. And this year was, the year of 2020, was a particularly hard year for our country and for Temple Beth Israel, as you're about to see, because we lost many of the people who have graced our bima, who have spoken at our pulpit. And so we're going to start now with our memorial for this year. These are the heroes we lost in 2020. Meredith Anding, he was a member of the Tougaloo Nine, arrested for checking out a library book and beginning the Jackson, Mississippi freedom struggle in 1961. Bruce Boynton, it was his arrest in a trailway station, I think in Richmond, Virginia, that began the freedom rides. Lucille Bridges, Ruby's steadfast mother. Deirdre Davis Butler, a disability rights champion. Jeanette Carlson, an anti-apartheid crusader. You see the sign for Mr. Vorster in Johannesburg. Bernard Cohen, the attorney who believed in love and in the lovings. Drew Days, the first African-American to lead the Civil Rights Division and the Solicitor General of the United States under President Clinton. David Dinkins, Mr. Mayor. Charles Evers, the older brother of Medgar, an NAACP leader, the first Black mayor in Mississippi since Reconstruction, and believe me when I say to you, a force unto himself. Margit Buchalter Feldman, she was a dedicated witness to the Holocaust, a dedicated survivor and witness who believed that the children must be taught. Dr. H. Jack Geiger, a doctor always on the front line for civil rights and medicine. Harriet Glickman, it was her fervent suggestion to Charles Schultz that we needed to see a little more color in Peanuts that brought us Franklin. Robert Gnezda, he founded the California Rural Legal Assistance, and he never stopped fighting for poor people's rights. Bill Harbour, who was a CORE freedom rider and continued as an organizer for CORE. Katherine Johnson, a NASA heroine who's a hidden figure no more. Mimi Jones, her acid-laced swim, and you see her down there in the pool, her acid-laced swim in St. Augustine helped pass the Civil Rights Act of 1964. United States Court of Appeals Judge Nathaniel Jones, a civil rights leader, and had Michael Dukakis become president of the United States, Judge Jones would have replaced Thurgood Marshall on the Supreme Court. Larry Kramer, playwright, AIDS activist. Attila Levy, she was a Jewish French resistance rescuer who smuggled Jews to safety, even sneaking into a hospital to take a Jewish patient out at risk to her own life. Kwame Leo Lillard, he partnered with John Lewis in the Nashville sit-in movements, and he stayed in the struggle, becoming a city council member in Nashville. Reverend Joseph Lowry, who's sitting there in the middle, was the co-founder of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and you see him doing the benediction at President Obama's first inauguration. Phyllis Lyon, who's the woman in the blue, she was a marriage equality advocate, and she had the first legal gay marriage in California, overseen by that young mayor, Gavin Newsom. Bobby Mitchell, Trust me, he was a brilliant Hall of Famer who integrated the Washington Redskins, the last of the all-white teams in the NFL. Jenny Nelson, co-founder of Sisters of the Road here in Portland. Sister Ardith Platt, she was an anti-nuclear activist and a federal inmate. Deborah White Plume, a Lakota activist from Wounded Knee to Keystone. Dr. Walter Reynolds, physician, civic leader, and Portland Urban League president. Sally Rowley, a freedom rider and a 40-day guest of Parchman Penitentiary, keeping John Lewis company there. And Emma Sanders, Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party delegate at the 1964 Democratic Convention. And Frank Sirocco, he was a SNCC activist, and as a young man found himself as Dr. King's cellmate in Selma, Alabama. Amy Stevens, she was the lead plaintiff in the Supreme Court transsexual victory from just this last year. Charles Trimble, a native rights advocate. And Mississippi Governor William Winter, who in a very serendipitous moment, we ran into the governor in Mississippi when we were on tour with the Temple Group. And George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and too many others. Please say their names. And these are the losses that have come to our Beth Israel home. Congregation Beth Israel Senior Rabbi Emeritus Emmanuel Rose. And these are 6 giants who have graced our bema, who are with us no more. Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Reverend Robert and Jeannie Gratz, who spoke, the first of our speakers at the Martin Luther King celebration, who we lost this year. Bob was the only white minister in Montgomery to be part of the bus boycott. And with an old tire and a tarp, Jeannie, his wife, created the first integrated pool in Montgomery in her backyard. Congressman John Lewis, teaching us about good trouble. Reverend C.T. Vivian. He was a preacher. Martin Luther King called him the best preacher he ever heard, a freedom rider and a Selma field general for Dr. King. Reverend Dr. T. Allen Bethel, Portland's moral voice. And these are the people we've lost, the civil rights giants who walked among us and are with us no more. Thank you.
We also want to take a moment to honor the memories of those we have lost in our own community at this time. First, we share the names of those who most recently died at Congregation Beth Israel: Jerry Newmark, Myra Enkelis, Dorothy Ryder, Marion Trieger. And then those in our community whose yahrzeit, the anniversary of their death, fall at this time: Morton L. Alexander, Lillian Applebaum, Muriel Berman, Louise Pauline Annisman Brenner, Ava Bronstein, Jean Coffey, Hyman Cohn, Herman David, Rosalie Davis, Bob Edelman, Robert Epstein, Leah Epstein, Glenn Epstein, Clara Farberman, Joseph Feldman, Ann M. Geffen, Susan Gewirtz, Maury Greenstein, Laddie H. Gross, Florence Hughes, Oscar Ingber, Hyman Kaplan, James Kaplan, Jean Kornfeld, David Cron, Lee Ann T. Labby, Hilda Lehman, Esther Levin, Leonie F. Lidsky, James R. Lilienthal, Lorraine Lipoff, Ronald K. Mesher, Naum Messerman, Harold Mink, Olga Molnar, June Nagel, Ben Novick, Louis Pusis, Gloria Rice, Fred M. Rosenbaum, Harry Rosenfield, Harold House Salzman, Adele Savinar, Gerald Stern, Mary Stillwell, David Strauss, Audrey Jane Vera, Sally Vidkoff, Jeffrey A. Ward, Jean White, and Zissenwine. We honor all of their memories, all of the civil rights heroes who have died in this past year, as we rise in body or in spirit to share these Aramaic words of Kaddish Atom, of our mourners' Kaddish. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah, v'alma divrach yurtei v'yanlich malchutei, v'chayachon v'yomachon v'chayedachol Beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kari v'imru, Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevarach le'elam ulamei amaya, Yibarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitroman v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitala shemei dekudusha brichu le'elam min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiram be'alma v'yimru, Amen. Ehei shlava rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru, Amen. Osei shalom b'mramav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel v'yimru, Amen. Zichronam livracha, may all of their memories be for a blessing. Amen.
If you want to know where I'm going, where I'm going soon. If anybody asks you where I'm going, where I'm going someday soon. I'm going up yonder. I'm going up yonder. I'm going up yonder to be with my Lord. I'm going up yonder. I'm going up yonder. I'm going up yonder to be with my Lord. Ooh, I can take the pain, the heartaches that it brings. There's comfort in knowing I'll soon be gone. Oh, as God gives me grace, I'll run this race until I see my Savior face to face. Oh, I'm going up yonder. I'm going up yonder. I'm going up yonder to be with my Lord. Oh, I'm going up yonder. I'm going up yonder. I'm going up yonder to be with my Lord. If anybody asks you where I'm going, where I'm going, where I'm going, soon, 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 soon. If anybody asks you where I'm going, where I'm going,
Thank you to all the musicians and community leaders who have come together this year and in years past to make tonight such a meaningful service. Shabbat Shalom. My name is Tony Urdes, and I have the honor of serving as your president at Congregation Bet Israel. Welcome to all of you who are watching tonight, including those of you who are with us for the first time. I have a few brief announcements about some upcoming events that are open to everyone. This coming Monday at 1 p.m., we are partnering in a special national concert. African American and Jewish music meet in a celebration of two cultures with a live broadcast of the National Yiddish Theater's Soul to Soul. Tickets are available on our website. Taste of Temple returns. The most delicious night of the year is back. Gather and mingle online as we nosh and enjoy highlights of Portland's famous food scene, all while helping to keep our community strong. We are thrilled to announce that there are two ways to enjoy Taste of Temple this year, including, for the first time ever, a free chance for our younger congregants to participate in the fun. Our 2021 menu features, first, a tiny Taste of Temple cooks up fun for the whole family on Sunday, January 24th at 10:30 a.m. And then, the Taste of Temple, B'tei Avon, provides a sophisticated tasting for adult palates. On Sunday, January 31st at 6 p.m., featuring Jacob & Sons, Kashka, Runes, Fire on the Mountain, and others, including an amazing Cabernet Sauvignon from Yarden Winery coming to us straight from Israel, with their wishes to meet in person next year in Israel or in our Portland. This is a fundraiser and a fundraiser. Please spread the word. And let's remember that our commitment and our causes need us now more than ever. This is our time. Let's all rise up and ensure our Jewish future here. Let's reach out even more. Let's commit even more. Let's give even more. Please consider one of our sponsorship opportunities and participate in the mitzvah moment. Registration, tickets, and sponsorship opportunities can be all found on our website. Bet Israel Adult Education Committee welcomes Professor Stephen M. Wasserstrom for a discussion on anti-Semitism today. This talk, which will take place on Wednesday, January 20th at 7 p.m., will look at recent reconfigurations of Jew hatred and their implications for American Jewry, with special emphasis on the Portland scene. Then, the adult education will kick off February with a Zoom conversation with Oregon Attorney General and Bet Israel congregant Ellen Rosenblum on February 2nd at 7 p.m. She will discuss hate crimes and hate speech in Oregon and what her office is doing to combat them. A special Shabbat celebration of the Women for Reform Judaism, Bet Israel Sisterhood, will take place Friday evening on February 12th. Keep an eye out for details on our weekly newsletter and on our webpage. All these events and more can be found on our website www.betisrael-pdx.org. Finally, one more thank you to our amazing clergy leading this service, Robin Taylor for helping with the graphics, Ron Silver for all of his work making this happen, to Chelsea, Shoshana, and Tracy for making the technology work, and to our tireless executive director, Josh Kaczynski. And thank you to all of you for being here with us tonight. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Tony. All right, everyone, I know the hour is growing late, but just a couple of things. In a minute, we're going to hear some amazing preaching. And we haven't heard enough preaching tonight, right? So we're going to hear some really great preaching. We're going to have a little bit more music. I just want to give, in addition to Tony's thank yous that he did, and thank you to our president, Tony Erdis, a really rousing round of applause for the Northwest Freedom Singers, the amazing choir that we heard in all of these videos, to our congregation Beth Israel's own Kol Echad choir, such an inspiration for us all to hear each other singing together. Incredible musicians that we heard, including Derek McDuffie, Tim Ripner, Arthur Steinhorn, Ben Sandler, Eldon T. Jones, Avi Haviv, and Aaron Peterson. Thank you, echoing the thank you that Tony gave to all of the clergy, my partners, staff, maintenance crew of Congregation Beth Israel, led by our executive director, Josh Kaczynski. To all of our guests, thank you so much. All of the readers and participants in tonight's service, we're so blessed to have you in our community and to have you in our service. And a very special thank you to our own drum major, Brother Ron Silver. Give him a hand to Brother Silver, who's not there. That's fine. That's what happens when I didn't tell him that he was going to be welcomed. But thank you. Thank you, Brother Ron. You were amazing. And to my dear friend, brother, who we're going to hear a closing prayer from, Pastor J.W. Matt Hennessy, the senior servant of Vancouver Avenue First Baptist Church.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. To everyone tonight, Shabbat Shalom. To Rabbi Kahana, to Cantor Kahana, to Rabbi Joseph, the memory of Rabbi Rose. Even on this time last year, we lost and saw, Dr. T. Allen Bethel, who was the keynote speaker. To my girlfriend, Rabbi Rose's widow, and to each of you, my brothers and sisters, including the absent Ron Silver. What a joy it is tonight on my personal behalf, on behalf of Elder Hennessy and the Vancouver Avenue First Baptist Church. We've enjoyed a wonderful relationship that literally all 14 years that you've had this wonderful Shabbat service, we've been a part of it. And I am so grateful for that. And for everyone, I want you to know that for 15 years, Rabbi Kahana and Cantor Kahana have joined us on Sunday, right after this, right before the holiday, to be a part of our Vancouver Avenue service. We too are having a service at 2 o'clock on Sunday. It will be virtual as well, and you can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/VAFBC for Vancouver Avenue First Baptist Church. Our theme this year is still the time, taken from Dr. King's words. He said, now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley of segregation to the sunlit path of racial justice. Now is the time to open the doors of opportunity to all of God's children. Now is the time to lift our nation from the quicksands of racial injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood and sisterhood. We will feature former Deputy Chief of Police Bob Day, who is a white male who has had an amazing change in his own life, to talk about what racial injustice and what justice for all is like as a white man, and a champion for that as well. Tonight, I don't know about you, my friends, but there's no way that you could have been here tonight and not be inspired by all of the music, by all of the speaking, and certainly by the wonderful message of John Lewis. As I listened to it, and again, I was blessed to be there on the night he was there and spoke, but I have to tell you, I thought tonight how relevant his words still are, relevant for all of us. And so we think about where we are today. I think about it, and actually we find ourselves somewhat where the children of Israel were when they found themselves at the shores of the Red Sea. The word tells us that the Egyptian army was behind them. God had made a separation for them, but yet what was in front of them was the Red Sea, and there was no path through it. There was no path around it. There was no path over it. They stood there, and as God would be, as God is, he made a way through that one wonderful sea, Red Sea, for what seemed impassable and what seemed impossible. It was the very God we served that saw them through. All of us lament 2020 and many of the things that occurred in 2020. But my friends, I come to tell you that 2020 was just like us standing on the shores of the Red Sea together. All of us, regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of age, we stood there. And 2020 brought us an awakening that was necessary, an awakening that caused us to understand that we are all of God's children, that we all deserve rights of life and liberty and the pursuit of happiness. And yes, there were some very sad things that happened in 2020. People awoke to disparities that many of us of Black and brown hue and Native American and Asian hue and Hispanic hue, we've known that, we've lived that. And it's so wonderful to have people join us in the fight to change that. 2020 caused us to look at our past, but to look at our present. And yet 2020, my friends, in what looked impassable and impossible, God made a way. I'll tell you how he did it. He did it by making a path through that Red Sea. And as we stood on the shores of that Red Sea and 2020 was about to end, look what he did even in Portland with an archaic city government that nobody would ever believe that we could elect a majority minority city council. Oh yes, he gave us Carmen. He gave us Mingus. He gave us Joanne. He gave us Dan, and he's given us Ted. Oh yes, 2020, God made a way. He made a way through that, what looked impassable and impossible. And yet look what he did on the national scene. He gave us Joe and he gave us Kamala. Yes, he also wasn't done. And in the first part of 2021, he gave us the son of a Jewish family in Georgia and gave us the son of Martin Luther King's church in Atlanta, Ebenezer Baptist Church. Oh yes, my friends, that's 2020. I promise you, as we look to the other side, the word tells us that after the children of Israel made their way through, what happened is that God pulled the waters back down on the Egyptians, never to be seen again. And I want to remind you that we have seen, as a result of 2020, and as a result of the hate speech that we saw, the divisiveness that we saw, the lies that we lived through, God brought down the waters, and he is giving us a bright new day. If you look to the rest of the text, when they got on the other side of the Red Sea, the word says that Moses sang. The word says that Miriam sang. And by the way, all I can see now, my friends, is us singing together as brothers and sisters, because we found out that such things as hate speech, such things as lies and division give us what we saw on January 6th. And we, by the way, have allowed people to use the power of their words to say awful, ugly, divisive things. It is time for us to find our voice together, and let us stand up and begin to give not divisive things, but things of unity. Let's use our voice to talk about how we can work together, talk about how we can put the past behind us, talk about how this country and the world can hear the bald-faced truth, not the bald-faced lie. Somebody may say, Pastor, what do you mean when you say the bald-faced truth? The bald-faced truth is that we love one another. The bald-faced truth is that we help one another, that we hear one another, that we support one another, that we strengthen one another, that we go to the streets together, that we stand up for freedom together, that we stand up for hope together, and that we stand up for justice and economic justice together, that we stand up for restorative justice together, that we stand up for educational justice together, that we stand up making sure that we march on. Oh, yes, we'll march on. We'll march on and sing on, just like Moses, just like Miriam. We shall sing, we shall overcome, but we actually will overcome. We shall overcome because we will dream on, we will sing on, we will hope on, we will walk on, and we will get in good trouble while we're doing it. And we thank you as you leave this place tonight and hear the wonderful song, I Need You, You Need Me, we need each other to survive. There is a wonderful future for all of us as we look to 2021 and put the past behind us. Let us go forward, recognizing that we just survived the Red Sea. God's got an amazing place for us. Let's go there, use our voice to bring us together, never to be separated again. God bless you all.
Grab the hand of the person next to you. We're going to sing a verse that we want you all to join in, because the words are so relevant, so fitting for such a wonderful event as this and such a family atmosphere as this. Listen to the words and then sing along. I need you. We're all a part. Stand with me. Agree with me. We're all and it is His will that every need be supplied. You're important to me. I need you. You're so important. Yes, you are. Now you know the words. Now turn to your neighbor and say this to them. I need you. You need me. We're all a part. Stand with me. Agree with me. We're all a part. It's His will that every need be. You're important, and I need you. Oh, you're so important, and I need you. Now listen, I'll pray for you. You pray for me. Because I love you. And I won't harm you with words. Because I love you. I'll pray for you. You pray for me. I love you. I won't harm you with words. No, 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 no. And I need 'cause I love you. I won't harm you with words, 'cause I love you. I pray for you. You pray for me. I love you. I need you. I won't harm you with words. I love you. And you. So I pray for me. And I won't harm you with words from my mouth. I love you and need you. I pray for you. You pray for me because I love you and need you. Oh, I need you. I won't harm you. Words, no. I love you. I need you. I pray for you. You better pray for me. Oh, I love you. I need you. I won't harm you with words, no. 'Cause I love you, I need you one more time. Please pray. I love you, I need you. I won't harm you with words, no. It's His will that every need. And remember, you're so important to me. I need you to survive. Oh, you're important, so important to me. I need you to survive. Never forget how important to me. We need you to survive.
Thank you. Good night. Shabbat Shalom. Such joy. My heart is so full. I hope you can go forward with a full heart as well. Continue to march together. Continue to get in good trouble. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom,
Good night.
everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.